Hi, I'm Glenn Whipp with the Los Angeles Times. FX's Fargo has been kind of become our new obsession. Here joining us, the long-suffering, smart, kind of hope for humanity character on the show, Allison Tolman, who plays the deputy. I mean, we're talking. Welcome first.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming here. So we're here, 6 episodes into the series. You know, people might be watching this, years from now.
Right.
Go, why didn't you ask about the finale or anybody? 6 episodes in, and in case you're watching this now and haven't watched that 6th episode, maybe pause and then come back. But please tell me, because she's okay, right?
You're concerned?
We're a little
like the
concerned.
Rest of the internet?
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like half of the internet is like, I'm not watching if she's dead, and the other half of the internet's like, I looked on IMDb and she's listed in 10 episodes, so everybody calm down.
Yeah.
And IMDb's never wrong.
Never. The internet is,
Yeah.
that website, everything else.
They're not allowed to put it up there if it's not true. So, she's in rough shape. She's in rough shape, but she does have more episodes left to go.
Yeah. Well, it seemed like the way they built the character would be kind of cruel.
It would be an unceremonious demise for her to go out that way.
I mean, Gus seems like the kind of deputy, or kind of, I guess he's a police officer, right?
Right.
He seems like the kind of guy like, you remember Barney Fife on the Andy Griffith Show, where Andy would give him like the one bullet for his gun, but he'd keep it in his pocket unless Barney really needed that bullet.
Just the one bullet.
Gus seems to be that.
He is.
He needed to have his bullet not in his gun, right?
He's just not built for a life in the police force, I think. He's not naturally suited to it. And yeah, I mean, what an unfortunate way for that to come to fruition. But creates great dramatic tension for the relationship between the two of us. So there's I think the best is yet to come.
Well, right. I mean, we had such hope for those characters. I mean, can Gus and Molly sort of transcend that moment? That's a little bit of a relationship roadblock there,
it's a trust issue, right? Because you might shoot me by accident. It's a smart tool, and they handle it really well in the next few episodes. To kind of watch where they go from here, and also watch where Molly goes. She's out of commission now on her big case, and to see what happens while she's in recovery and stuff. So
maybe Molly could just keep that bullet in her handbag.
She
or
needs
whatever.
to keep it. She needs to keep it away from Gus. Poor Gus.
We have a piece running Sunday in the Times where you were saying that you kind of learned about shipping, the concept of shipping.
Yeah.
And that the internet's all over Gus and Molly, and their ship name is Golly.
Golly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is kind of an appropriate tone for that relationship, right?
It's adorable. I think it's adorable. And they have so many fans. Like, both these characters, I think, are so likable, and people feel so warmly towards them. And so the moment that we met is really, I think, when this kind of broke open for me, is when Molly met Gus. People were like, ooh, and then I started being recognized on the street and being tweeted at, etc. So that, for whatever reason, that's what really solidified this character for people, was her relationship with Gus, which I think is appropriate.
But the relationship's handled really nicely. It's not like, it's just very evolving, very naturally, very low key in the course of going about the thing. But you see like little glimmers of interest, being piqued.
It's nice, and we don't often pace television that way. We tend to go a lot faster, so that things are more exciting and they're sexier, and that's not a concern of ours really in this program. So we're kind of released from that, and it would be unrealistic for these people that we're spending time with as well. That's just not how they behave, and they're not demonstrative, and it would be out of character for them to behave the way people behave on other television shows.
Yeah.
So
this isn't Pretty Little Liars.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not Pretty Little Liars. No. Has the same amount of intrigue, though, I think.
Just in a different way.
In a different way.
In the sixth episode, I mean, there's that big whiteout thing going on. I mean, I'm assuming that was largely done special effects, but not too far from the actual experience of making this in Calgary, right?
Yeah, you know, we very rarely filmed in active snow. There was often snow all over the ground, and then we would create, you know, snow, and it was to varying degrees of how much snow we had, and we had a lot of snow blowing around on the days we were filming those. But yeah, I mean, we filmed those scenes outside with the snow blowing and blowing and blowing, and actual snow on the ground. And then John Ross, our special effects artist, went through and really tightened that up and made that blizzard really something where you wouldn't be able to see through it, and it would be conceivable to accidentally shoot your love interest, etc. And he did a really fantastic job. I hadn't seen it. I mean, of course, I hadn't even seen the footage before that, but I was just blown away, I thought, by how wonderful it looked when I saw it on Tuesday.
So you're watching it week to week?
I'm watching it week to week now, yes. I saw the first 4 ahead of time, and then now I'm watching it along with everybody else, which is exciting. Yeah.
We did a piece. I talked to Billy Bob Thornton and Martin Freeman, same thing. Yeah. They're watching it. You know, FX doesn't send us the screeners. They're saying so. Yeah. They were recording it or watching it live, and having that same kind of experience that the fans of the show are having.
Yeah. Well, and then there's so many storylines, and there's so many different things that kind of converge within each episode that, you know, I read every script when I get it, and then I would just focus on the scenes that I was in because I had to, you know, learn lines. So then I'd forget, the fish scene. I forgot about the fish scene, you know, and I forgot that character dies. I really like that character, you know. So it is kind of a little bit of a discovery each week to remember like what I read all these months ago.
Yeah, I understand the fish scene. I mean, since you brought it up, it really does not go explained. I
don't think that they really explain it.
Yeah, I was like watching it going, you know, some kind of refined, you know, fish factory just blew up, or how did Malvo do that?
Yeah,
you know, but
that's an actual plague. You know, that one's not fabricated by the
bad
guy.
Frogs and Paul Thomas Anderson.
In Magnolia, exactly. Yeah, and I think it just sort of adds more to this kind of lore that that Noah has created in this world, in this kind of Fargo-verse where weird things happen, and sometimes they go unexplained, and characters are just a little bit off, and you know, I think that you just have to take it and move forward, move on. I don't think it goes explained. I don't think that there's any more. They get it too in depth with the fish.
Into the science of it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Now, you lived in Chicago before this. Are you still living in Chicago?
I'm still in Chicago, actually, yeah.
So the weather, you had to be kind of used to, like cold winters.
A little bit more than
some of
the guys who are from here, for sure. But yeah, it certainly gets colder in Calgary than it does in Chicago. But it stays sunnier there, which is nice. And the hardest part about Chicago, I think, is that it's gray for 6 months out of the year. It's just really hard to have any sunshine, and you get depressed and have to take a lot of vitamin D. But in Calgary, even when it's super, super cold, the sun is usually out and shining.
So you at least have that.
Yeah, like psychologically, I think that's helpful.
But there were times, I mean, Martin was telling me, you'd step out and it would just be like, below zero, and how do you function?
There's a
doing this,
There's a type of cold where you sort of leave your body and are just kind of like, this is interesting, like, and all you can think about is like getting to the point where you cannot be in the cold anymore, like where you can get to the drugstore you're walking to or get through the shot or whatever. And we had to cancel. We canceled one day of filming because it was too cold for us to film. But
the cables were snapping.
The cables were snapping, and they're like an orange traffic cone, like shattered, untouched. Just got too cold and shattered. So they called that day. We did not film that day, wisely, I believe.
Now, I mean, living in Chicago, sort of close to Minnesota. Did you have sort of the whole Minnesota thing down before you got this, or?
Well, I think that's kind of twofold. I mean, I'm a Texan. I'm from Texas. I've been in Chicago since 2009, so I understand that sort of Midwest sentiment a little bit better than I probably would if I'd come straight from Texas, which is a completely different world. So I think that was helpful. And then I also think that Noah's writing and creation of this world is so strong that if you kind of follow his lead, then you're halfway there, So I didn't have to do too much digging to kind of figure out who these people were and how they operated, because it's his vision of it is really strong.
But the politeness and the very eternal good-natured, I mean, that's different from Chicago, right?
I think so. I mean, yeah, and I think it comes from also the sort of smaller town feel as well. The idea of, Bemidji being a place where a lot of people know each other, and that just changes the way that the story unfolds, I think.
And the accent was easy because you had been doing some of that in your sketch comedy, right?
Yeah. Yes, I had been doing a sort of absurd version of it for many years, for giggles. So we worked with a dialect coach who helped us all kind of whittle it down to the same region and the same area and keep us all on track, and was there on set with us to help us pronounce things correctly.
So you're taking it down a little bit.
Yeah,
the absurdity.
Just a scotch.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I had to take it down quite a bit. Quite a bit. I took it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're getting some questions on Twitter, so let me fire out a couple here. What is your favorite scene to film in the show? Did you have one that we've seen through the first 6? And what about Molly do you love playing? I mean, what about the character is appealing to you? My favorite scene that you guys that we've seen so far is filming the scene in the restaurant with my old friend from high school, where she's talking about the spider, laying eggs in her boyfriend's neck. God, yes.
That scene was really fun. That actress, her name is Anna Sundberg. She's actually from Minneapolis, St. Paul, and that was it was our last shot of the week. Actually, it was like the end of the day on a Friday, and it had been a long week. And I found out as we were working on it that there had been more than one discussion about cutting the scene, because just for time. And Noah was like, "We're not cutting the scene. We have to keep the scene. We're not cutting the scene." And I went in and got to play this scene, and it's such an obviously comedic scene, and I don't have to worry about relaying facts or interrogation or, it's just a conversation with another human. And it's obviously a comedic scene, and getting to go in and end out the week like that in front of this crew that I loved, and getting to do what's in my wheelhouse and do some comedy after having done so much dramatic stuff was just a really, really fun way to end the week. And then we all got a beer, so that was nice too.
A comedic scene and yet educational.
Yeah, exactly. Spiders. We all learn things.
Yeah.
Although I read online someone after that episode when everyone was like, "This is terrifying," someone on Twitter was like, "You guys, I looked it up. That can't happen. Don't worry." So I don't know if that's true or not. It's on the internet, so it must be true.
Yeah, we've established
you cannot
that,
actually.
right?
Yeah, we've established that.
Yeah. We have a question from Eza Rose, who's talking about this being sort of your breakthrough role. And are you planning? I mean, she's asking, are you planning to stick to this genre? I mean, pretty good at it. Although I don't know what genre this would be.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I feel really lucky because I think that this role in this project is a good marriage of the way that I've sort of spent my career up to this point, which I did a lot of theater and I did a lot of, dramatic acting, and then I took off and started doing sketch. So this is a really nice marriage of those two things. And I would be really lucky to work in this medium for the rest of my life. But certainly my hope is that I can kind of vary things in my career for the next few years moving forward, and stretch myself, and also be able to show people what I'm capable of, what I've spent the last 10 years playing around with without cameras rolling, So I'd like to do it all of it.
Oh, that's the amazing thing about this is that, 10 years. I mean, you've been working to this for 10 years, and then you get this role that is such a wonderful way of showcasing a lot of different talents of you as an actress.
Yeah. I mean,
and
there's no way to be thankful enough for something like that coming along. I think we were just right for each other, this part and I, and we're just really lucky that we found each other.
Yeah.
I'm lucky that I was in the right place at the right time, and that this role was so strongly written, and that she spoke to me really loudly the first time that I read the script. I felt like I understood her and that I could play her, and then I got to spend all this time playing around with this character, which was awesome, really fun.
What was the kind of the key to understanding her for you?
I think what really locked it into me was just sort of her sort of understated pragmatic nature, which to me dictated her relationships, and the way that her comedy is played and the way that the jokes play with her is always to understate, 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 which is a departure from where I've been spending my time for the past few years, which is in sketch comedy. I haven't done dramatic acting, and I haven't had to play the straight man very much in the past few years. But you know, it's just kind of home for her. So I know that if I go back to that point, that probably the scene is going to go pretty well if I can zero in and just downplay it.
And when you sent in a tape for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, you were just working like a temp job.
I was. I'd recently quit my full-time job with nothing lined up, with no plan, which I don't recommend. That was a scary time. But you know, I quit my job, and I was looking for something else. I was temping in the morning just to get like $11 an hour, just to kind of have something and have somewhere to go. Because when you're not working, you can get really depressed too. And then I was interviewing in the afternoon, trying to find a job that would leave me enough time to write in the evenings, etc. And I just popped by like over my lunch break and put myself on tape for Fargo and sent it off into the ether and forgot about it until several weeks later when they called and told me that I needed to go to New York to test for the show.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, had you done a fair amount of that, just like the process of starting out as an actor? You're putting stuff on tape and sending it out, but you're not really thinking.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, more often than not, I was auditioning for commercials or, you know, industrials or voiceover gigs or whatever. So it was less and less often that I would get to go in and read for a pilot, or I got to audition for The Daily Show one time, which was a big deal for me because I got to read something that I had written, you know, and just kind of playing at that level feels really good. It feels good that your agency thinks of you in that way, and it felt good to me to think somebody at Comedy Central has, even if it's an intern, they have a tape somewhere of me reading something that I wrote, and that felt really cool. And it was the same way, I think, with Fargo, except I was distracted at that point in time by my life sort of going on around me and not really being sure what was going to happen next and how I was going to make it through the fall, you know. So yeah, I mean, I didn't put a lot of weight on it, I think, when I sent the tape in, because you can't think about auditions once you've done them. You have to forget about them, or you can make yourself crazy. So. And
then you got the phone call.
Yeah.
So you go to New York?
Yeah, I went to New York and I tested. I did a screen test with Noah and Adam Bernstein and Rachel Tenner, and there were 4 of us, I think, that tested, and I felt good about it, but I'd never done a screen test before, so I wasn't really. Yeah. Sure, it seemed like it had gone well. So, and I went in on a Saturday to do a work session, and then I was going to go back on Sunday to actually record my audition that they were going to send off to the network. And after we taped my whole work session, and after my work session, Noah and Adam said, "We think we've got it, and you don't need to come back tomorrow." And I was like, "Well, that's either really bad or really good, you know." But
right.
Yeah, I know it would behoove them to have the best things that they can get from me on tape, and I don't know that I'm going to go home and like become a better actress overnight and be able to do anything different than I did today. We had a really good session, so I said okay, and I left, and I bummed around New York for an extra day, and then I went home, and then they called me 5 days later and told me I had the role. Yeah.
So you could quit that temp job and
yeah, in the meantime,
or maybe keep going and at least until the start date. Right?
Yeah, right.
Just to keep
a
little cash.
In the meantime, in that 6-week period where they were still kind of tossing my tape around, I got a part-time job at a photography studio, which is where I was working when I got the call. Actually, that day I got the call out on the street outside of the photography studio. But I went in the next day and told them about that I'd gotten the role and that I was going to finish out the month, and then I was going to take a few weeks off before I had to move to Calgary for 6 months.
6 months, yeah.
6 months.
I mean, that was. It wasn't just like, it wasn't just getting a job.
Yeah.
That was going to last for, you got a commercial or a part, an episode on a TV show or something. It was a 6-month commitment.
Yeah.
Which is pretty great and.
Yeah, and quite different than anything, obviously, that I'd done before. I'd never spent more than a week on set for a project, and that was Sordid Lives. I spent a week in Shreveport, and I think filmed 3 days out of the 5 or something like that. So yeah, that was a big adjustment. I mean, everything about this process after the point that I got that phone call, really the point where I went and did the screen test, has been like such a steep learning curve and so completely foreign to anything that I've ever experienced before, or people that I know even in the business have really experienced before. So I really just kind of tried to keep calm about it and remind myself that I could ask questions if I needed to, and that I wasn't going to be good at things immediately, and that I had a lot to learn, which is true. And luckily, I went into a situation where, again, we had a really wonderful crew. Our producers and the network loved this project from the beginning. They were on board, and they were there with us in the cold every day. And then my co-stars were all incredible and kind and patient and good. So I had really very little to worry about, and I got there and I could just work because they took such good care of me.
And at 6 months, I mean, I imagine you get to know each other pretty well.
Yeah.
You were telling me before we started here that if you're going into a different town, different city, Bob Odenkirk, a good person to have with you.
Because he completely immerses himself in the town immediately. Like, I don't know how he does it so quickly, but he, like, the moment I met him, he knew where like 2 bookstores were that we should go to, and every good breakfast spot in town. I don't know how he does that. I don't know. Maybe he goes a week early and scouts things out. No, but he's a good man to know, and he'll tell the locals where they should be going as well. He's not afraid to do that.
Yeah, quickly into it. He's an expert, right?
Yeah. And he's usually right. I had some good meals at some good places that he recommended, and then I recommended to other people in Calgary and said, "Have you heard of this place?" Bob told me about it. So yeah, he's a good man to know for sure.
And do you spend much time with Billy Bob Thornton, or because you guys were sort of your characters were at cross purposes?
Right.
Maybe you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
No, I certainly spent more time with Bob and Colin and Martin and Keith. But Billy Bob and I got to be on set at the same time fairly often, so we could hang out on set or eat lunch together or whatever. But yeah, of course, our characters are at odds, so we can't really meet up just yet. You have to give us some time.
Yeah, the great thing about Molly's relationship with Bob Odenkirk, the sheriff.
Yeah.
So that character has no experience with anything like this before, and I think it's in episode 6 where you kind of see finally it's starting to slowly dawn on him that maybe Molly is onto something here.
Yeah.
She's so patient in trying to just keep coming at it from different angles.
Yeah. That's actually something that was the direction that I got the most often, especially in the beginning when I came in, is that they would remind me that the way she gets things done is through that patience and that smile and that Minnesota nice. So that was kind of a character trait that I developed that first week on set and then got to employ for the rest of the time. But yeah, I mean, I think that Molly and Bill's relationship is a really great way to see that dynamic play out, and the arc of that relationship and what you guys have to look forward to in the next 4 episodes is really, really something. The way that it develops is really, really beautiful, and the work that Bob gets to do is really, really something as well. Yeah.
Now you've teased it.
I know, it's good stuff. It's really good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's 10 episodes, nearly 10 hours of this.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how the series has kind of moved. I mean, some characters that you saw in the first 2 episodes we haven't seen them for a while. I don't know if those boys are coming back with their crossbows and their But I mean, it's kind of focused in, kind of honed in on the main characters now, and it'll be interesting. I cannot wait to see where it goes.
Yeah, it's kind of a fast-moving train now from here on out. So I'm excited to watch Twitter explode with each episode.
Is that something you do? It's like
I do. I'm terrible about it, and I've all of my co-stars were like, stop reading the internet now. Like, you can't read the internet because you're going to read as many bad things as you do good things. But I'm just not at the point yet where it's still completely fascinating to me, and I mean I'm not at the point yet where I'm not still reading every hashtag, and I want to know what people are saying about the show, and I want to see what they're doing on Tumblr, etc. I know at some point in time I'm going to have to stop, I'm sure, and there'll just be too much to read, you know.
Are you doing it while you're watching the episode? Do you
No,
have...
I pretty much watch completely wrapped.
And then
I go that night and get into bed and read what everybody said about things.
Well, thank you so much for coming down.
Thank
It
you
was
so much
great
for having
talking
me.
to you.
Yeah, thank you.
And for more on television coverage, go to latimes.com. Thank you.